All right. First Throwback Thursday of 2020. This has been months since I said I was going to make it, but now we're here. So, last time on Throwback Thursday, I talked about how I inadvertently opened the door to my spiritual awakening and how I did many things to avoid my spiritual journey, which eventually led to all these things and eventually going on my spiritual journey. So, today I'm going to talk about how I actually walked through those doors. Okay, because you can open the door to anything you want in your life, but if you don't do anything, if you don't walk through those doors, then it's not gonna matter how many doors you open, right? Can be like, oh yeah, I want to be this, I want to do that, I want to do that, all these things, but talk talk is cheap. You got to do something about it. So eventually something fell into my lap. It was what was it? I was watching a video on YouTube from this guy who has a channel called Bright Insight. Bright Bright Insight. I think that's the name of the channel. So he was talking about his first time with a particular crystal called moldavite, and it's a special type of crystal called a tektite. So it's a type of glass that's formed when a meteor strikes the Earth, and it creates this type of cosmic glass, you could say. So it's infused with very high energetic properties from an extraterrestrial object, and then when it hits the Earth and fuses with the Earth energy of that particular region, it creates a very unique type of crystal. So Moldavite is from, what is it? It's from this place in Russia, I think. It I don't know why it's called Moldavite because it's found near the Moldau River. So I guess it's something to do with the Russian name or the traditional name of the place. I know in some places the U turns into a V sound. So that's probably where the Vite comes from instead of like Moldo White. That's what you would probably expect if you know where it's from. Moldau, right? It ends with a U. So when he talked about his first time holding Moldavite, he talked about like how all this stuff happened and his body started getting warm, his hands were getting tingly, and this is something that's common for people who handle Moldavite, and it really opened the door for him to all these spiritual things that people talk about, like the magic of crystals, the benefits that you can have with all these crystals and stuff. And you've probably noticed I have quite a number of crystals in my room. I have bracelets also, and I also make bracelets for people, so I have a lot of crystals. But it didn't start out that way. At this time in my life, I had zero. I had zero crystals. So I was like, interesting. This guy is very intelligent and also um, hmm, very open-minded, I would say, and scientific. So it's like, okay, you know what? That sounds interesting. I'm gonna go get myself some moldavite. So where can I find some moldavite? So I just went on Yelp, looked for moldavite, and then a place called Gaia, Hawaii was one of the top search results. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty close to where I lived at that time. Uh, where was it? At this time, I lived in Waikiki. So in Waikiki, Gaia, Hawaii is just a couple bus rides. Like I could walk to a bus station. Actually, it could be just one bus ride, depending on which bus I took. So I could walk like 7 minutes to the bus stop and then take a bus ride. So that's what I did. But despite it being so conveniently close to me. It took me half an hour to find this frickin' place, and it's because the place doesn't have a sign. Yeah, so this place is operating on some very like high level spiritual juju, because how does a store survive for many years and not have signage? Like, you can't find the place. So I was looking around the place. I was just like, where the hell is this place? Like, I'm looking at the map on Yelp and I'm like, it's like I'm getting closer, but I still have no idea where it is. Like, there's no sign for it anywhere. And then I met these two ladies that were like leaving this clinic, so they're nurses. And then I just asked them like, "Hey, do you know where Gaia, Hawaii is?" And both of them were like, "No, we don't know about that place." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, figures. I mean, they did not look spiritual to begin with." So I was like, yeah, figures you wouldn't know. So what I did after walking around for like 15 minutes was I went on Yelp, and then I read the comments, and then I found a comment, like 5 comments down the list, that had directions to the place. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's see if I can figure out these directions, because it's a lot more difficult following directions than it is following a map, right? But the Yelp map doesn't really tell you exactly how to get there. A combination of visuals and directions makes something so much easier to follow. That's why, things like Food Network is super popular, and it's super easy to learn how to cook. That's actually how I learned how to cook, is by watching Food Network, because there's visuals that show you how to do something, and then there's also instructions. So I was still wandering around, and I was like, man, what staircase are they talking about? So I looked for every single staircase I could find, and then eventually I walked closer to the intersection, which is actually where the store is. And then I found another set of staircase, another, yeah, another set of stairs. So I walked up those stairs, and then I found a door with another door, and it was a glass door, which I think was in the description. So then I followed that door into the building, through another door, onto my left, and then I walked down the hall, and I could smell like this really strong incense. So I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good sign that I'm getting closer to a spiritual shop, right? How many spiritual stores have you been to that has incense in it? Like, a lot of them have incense, right? So that was a really good indicator. And then there were these double doors, also glass, still no sign. And when I looked through it, it looked like a spiritual store, because there's like crystals hanging stuff, lots of crystals like everywhere. There's like trees with pendulums hanging on it, and there was a table, a round table inside, that had a giant crystal ball. It was this big, and I was like, oh, I would love to have a crystal ball like that. It's a synthetic quartz crystal ball, but it doesn't matter if it's synthetic if you know how to work with crystals. So that's how I found Gaia, Hawaii. It was quite an adventure. It took about half an hour for me to even find the store. And there was an Asian lady there at the time. Her name is Maggie. And I asked her if they carried Moldavite. And it turns out they did. So go figure. And they had several pieces of Moldavite to choose from. And I was on a budget at the time, so I got something that was not like any of the other ones they had. Because the larger the piece of Moldavite, the bigger the price tag is. Like, really big. If you have like a piece that's just like 2 inches, that's like several $100s right there. And the higher grade, like the greener it is, the clearer it is, that's more like glass, the higher the price also. So I got something that was like small and triangular, and I just like held it in my hand. But I think it was the anticipation, or well, I wasn't really open to energy at that time yet, so I didn't really know what I was expecting or waiting for or supposed to feel, sense, tange, whatever. And then I just held it in my hand for like another half an hour. So I was just like, I'm gonna hold on to this and just see. But after holding it for about half an hour, so I was looking around the shop, I noticed that the moldavite was very warm. And it's not like the type of warmth that an object would be from holding it for so long. It's like it got really warm. Like it was like hot. I was like, this is really weird. And it's such a small object. Like it doesn't make sense for it to be this hot. It was almost like it was radiating its own heat. So I was like, huh, hmm. I don't know if this is what that guy was talking about, but I think this is an indicator that this may be what I'm looking for. So I ended up buying it. And that's like the story of how I got my first crystal. And then I also got this dichroic kyanite, which was really beautiful. That was $250. I know, didn't I say I was on a budget? Any, anyway, so that's how budgets kind of go when you're when you're like in this whole spiritual thing. It's like, yeah, I have a budget. Oh, but this piece is talking to me. So that's like kind of how things go. So for a while I just had two crystals, and then I also saw this oracle deck called Wisdom of the Oracle, and it's actually behind me. It's the orange one right over here. Yeah, Wisdom of the Oracle was the first oracle deck that I ever got. And I think I got that the second time I visited the store. The first time I just got the crystals. The second time was when I like started dabbling into the whole reading stuff. Because, I didn't really believe any of that stuff at the time. I didn't understand how energy worked. I didn't understand how cards, like what the scientific mechanism was for how oracle readings worked. So to me, it just seemed like fortune telling, like really random, um, improbable. Like, yeah, I'm not really sure how to describe it anymore because I've just been in so deep into the whole spiritual stuff for so long. It's like I forgot what it was like to not be spiritual. So I just thought it didn't really make any sense. And that's just because I was ignorant. I didn't know anything about it. But I just like played around with it for a while, and the second time I went there, the old lady that owns the store told me about how it takes years for somebody to become a practice reader, and that's just like doing readings for themselves and all this other stuff. And I was like, damn, 2 years? I don't know if I like want to practice that long in order to be able to do readings. But a couple months after that, I met my first spiritual mentor, and like she helped me develop my intuition and all this other stuff and my spiritual senses. And then I practiced doing a lot of readings, and I actually started doing readings in like 8 months, something like that. I think it was like 8 months. No, 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 no. It wasn't 8 months. It was like 1 year. I actually did readings and got paid for it within 1 year of doing it, because like that's just how quick things are when you really go to the root of it. When you understand how things work, you develop much quicker. as opposed to just like, huh, how do I do this? Like just blindly um, like stumbling through how to get all this stuff. So because I had help learning how to utilize my intuition and develop my spiritual senses, I was able to do card readings very accurately and also very deeply. So I got to a point to where I started developing the ability to see the energy flow of the cards, and then as I was doing the card readings, I'd be so connected, like I can see the future, um, because it's based on how the person's energy is flowing at that time. So when we get to the future part of the reading, that's like the future stuff. So yeah, that's like it's all really really interesting and crazy stuff. But when I first started, let's see, I think what really got me through those doors was buying my first two crystals and my oracle deck. Those were the three things. Because after that, let's see, there was like another month or two before I bought more crystals. And then shortly I bought those crystals, I met my first spiritual mentor. So things just like started manifesting quicker. And this was after I got my Moldavite. So I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. Like maybe the spiritual stuff is actually like there's something to maybe there's something to it, huh? Go figure. But being so new to it at the time, it's just like, damn, like how could all this stuff be happening? And I mean, even before that, earlier that year, like I talked about how I learned some of that Lemurian healing stuff, but didn't understand any of it because it was just so outside my element. And also, it's not something that I've ever heard of before or since because nobody really knows Lemurian healing. It's such an ancient art that hasn't been used in like 50,000 years probably. It's really old. So for somebody to be able to channel it and then give it to somebody, I mean, just like a group of people, and I happen to be one of those people. Of course, I'm not going to understand any of it, but thank goodness I have such good like visual memory. Actually, I have I have really good sensory memory. It's very interesting. I I recently learned that I have like perfect pitch. I I learned a while ago that I have perfect color vision, and apparently I also have perfect taste or something like that. If you're to describe this in terms of like psychology or like scientific physiological stuff, then I would describe it as having a high IQ. So IQ is not something that is determined, it's something that is evolving and is based on energy flow. So if you have perfect pitch, it's not just the ability to determine sounds, it's how you're processing the auditory information. So I talk about that in terms of high oral IQ. AURAL IQ, high oral IQ. You're able to hear a particular sound and frequency and you're able to break down the multidimensional aspects of that sound. So sound, there's so many different things that we don't really think about on a normal basis, right? So there's like tone, there's texture, there's color, there's pitch. So perfect pitch is the most common version that people know about, but there's so many different aspects of sound that people with perfect pitch are also very good at remembering and identifying. And if you have a very high oral IQ, then you can remember these things in such great detail. And so when you hear particular patterns of sounds, your mind just goes, oh, that reminds me of this. And I've had that for a really long time, and I had no idea what that was. It's related to perfect pitch. So I hear like a certain interval of sounds or pitches, and I'm like, oh, it just like gives me a flashback. And that's something that people with perfect pitch has. Another thing with high oral IQ is when something deviates from what you're used to, it sounds off. So a lot of people who do covers, when I listen to it, I'm like, this is awful. I didn't know what that was. It turns out it's because they're singing the song in a different key and just bringing it higher or lower than the original. To me, it's like sacrilegious. I was just, it's something that people with perfect pitch like pretty much have. I'm okay with it now, but before it's just like it really like screwed with my mind. I'm just like, this, why does this sound so wrong? And then the first time I really understood what that was when I went karaoke with my friends, and they told me that they increase or decrease the pitch in order for them to sing it. And then when they did that, the song would sound fine, and then it would sound awful. And then the further it got from the original pitch, the worse it sounded to me. So, so I was like, what is this? How come they can't hear it? It's so weird. It's like my friends can't tell that it sounds worse. I don't know. But now I know it's not like about the thing sounding right or wrong. It's actually just my my conception of a song is in this particular expectation. And whenever I hear something that's not within that expectation, that box, it's automatically bad. So thanks to my spiritual practice and all the stuff that I've done over the past several years, I don't have an issue with my perfect pitch anymore. And this has actually helped me develop my relative pitch, which is a different type of um, it's like a musical intelligence kind of thing. So other sensory stuff, right? You have visual IQ. That's your ability to see things. So I can see when I see pictures, it's very easy for me to remember what I'm seeing. Um, the when I see color, a lot of people don't process color in the same way also. That's how I know that I have like perfect color vision. And also there's like a test for it online. It was very quick for me to do. And what they do is they take two different colors and then put it into a gradient, and then they change the saturation, and they change the lightness and darkness of it. So you arrange it into a perfectly smooth gradient, and there's like 10 blocks of two color sets. So you just like put it together, and then there's like different ones that they do. And then if you get it all correct, then you have perfect color vision. So I did that. I'm like, this seems really easy. And I don't even like think about it. I just like click and drag until everything looks like it's transitioning correctly and smoothly from one color to the other. And that's how you can tell if you have perfect color vision. I don't remember where the thing is, but you have high visual IQ if you can see colors and identify them. It doesn't matter if you can name it, but you can describe it. You know that they're different. And most of the people around you probably don't have that ability to differentiate. Like, for example, if somebody asks you if a food has spoiled, this is something that happened to me many times when I was a kid. Like somebody would ask me like, "Hey, is this still good?" And I'd look at it and I'm like, "Bro, are you serious? Like that does not even look like the right color. That that doesn't look like something that's still fresh and edible." Because for me, I can clearly see that the color has changed, and it's changed in so many different ways. But to somebody who doesn't have high visual IQ, it looks like it's different, but they don't really notice the difference. Does that make sense? it's not something that they really pay attention to, and they would struggle to tell you the difference between something that looks fresh and something that's spoiled. And I'm not talking about like where it goes from like a bright color to a dark color. I'm talking about uh like rice turns into like this yellowish tinge color when it spoils. So that kind of thing. Like people would not be able to tell the difference if they don't have a high visual IQ. And it's just so weird. Part of the thing that I I also grew up with was why people kept confusing colors. Like the signal lights, a lot of people in my family and friends before would call it orange, and I'd look at it and I'm like, that is not orange. Are you okay? That is not orange. And then also, it bothered me when I saw street lights that were orange and aren't yellow, and the street lights that were green but aren't green. You know, the standard green for street lights. So there's so many weird things that happen when you grow up with this high visual or high sensory awareness, but you're not taught any of this stuff. So none of this stuff I really understood till I was in college. So imagine a lot of these kids growing up today not being educated in any of this stuff, and they just like have this really twisted sense of how things are. And it's unfortunate because now we're moving toward all of these things where things are things are becoming more hmm, things are becoming more open. So I'm happy about that because putting everything in boxes, like things have to taste this way, things have to be this color, things have to sound this way, is not good for spiritual development because I grew up in that type of environment, so that's why I had that type of expectation and experience when, like, if I heard a song that was in a different key from the original, and I know what the original is, it sounds wrong to me because I grew up with the expectation of having things done this way. It has to be this way. If it's not done this way, it's wrong. So it's good that we're moving away from that type of old school thinking where it's okay to change things around, be more creative, be more fluid. How about you change it by a couple tones or even change the octave and a tone, that kind of thing. So it's really good. It's good. Now, let's see. Moving into 2020, what can we do to add to this, to our spiritual journey? Hmm. Ah, what kind of senses have you noticed that you're very particular keen at? Because if you talk to people and you share your experiences with people, there's going to be people that don't understand what you're talking about. So when you have that type of experience, then you know that you have a higher acuity than other people in certain areas. So do you have a strong sense of smell or what is it? High, I'm not sure what you would call that. So is your sense of smell very good? Do you have a high IQ for smelling? Do you have very keen senses for visuals, right? Or is your hearing very good? Are you able to hear and remember things and remember the melody? Are you able to learn things by ear, right? That's another thing for high oral IQ is you can learn things by ear. If you have high visual intelligence, you can learn things by vision. And then there's also tactile tactile IQ. So are you very sensitive to what you feel, what you tange, right? And I don't mean sensitive like something brushes you and it's like, ow, that hurts, like that kind of thing, or like somebody touches you. That's not the kind of sensitive I'm talking about. Like, if you touch something, oh, do you immediately know, like, oh, this is very silky and smooth, could be polyester, definitely not cotton, like that kind of thing. If something is smooth versus something that's rough, and because I also have high tactile senses, it bothered me like when I was in high school and college, and also post college. Like, I did not like things that were cotton, and I did not like things that were jeans. So there's just like so much stuff that people wore, and I'm like, how can you wear this? This is so this is the tange of it is not nice. It doesn't have a nice tactile sensation. How can you wear stuff like this? The material. When I go to um, clothing stores, department stores, and I touch the clothing, I touch everything. So I touch the clothes on like the mannequins and all this other stuff, and I'm just like, ugh, this is some cheapo material. This and I can also just by touching it go like, oh, this is gonna fall apart after one wash. That's that kind of thing, and it's not something that I think about or analyze. It's just because my ability to understand like how like the structural integrity of something is just by touching it is very high. So like when I got this shirt or when I touched this shirt, I was like, oh, this is really nice and silky. Oh, it doesn't stretch though. I don't like that it doesn't stretch, but it's really nice and smooth. So it's something that I would like to wear, and it's just by touching the quality, I know it's a microfiber, and I know that it's very sturdy. So this is something I can wash multiple times, and I look at the stitching and I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is something that can last. This is something that looks good. And then also the last thing is I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, is this something that is me? All right. Wow, that was I ended up going into like another sense. So, yeah, I have a lot of senses, and when you understand spiritual stuff, this isn't like me bragging about how amazing my senses are or that I'm so gifted or talented. It's not any of that at all. It just means that I was I was able to retain a lot of my sensory abilities. I didn't numb myself when I was a kid, because this is what happens for children. Like, there's studies that have been done where kids who, just drink water, like, hey, if you drink this water, you will be smart. And then kids drink the water, and then voila voila, their test scores go up. That's all it takes, because they were introduced something that supposedly turns on their abilities, that allows the energy to flow, and then they believed it, so it happened. That's just like, kids are so good at that. So if they don't have that type of encouraging environment, guess what, they're gonna shut down these abilities. So if you were told as a kid, like, you're dumb, you don't you suck at art or whatever, you're gonna shut down these abilities. You're gonna shut down your ability to draw. You're gonna shut down your ability to compose, um, like a drawing or whatever. You're gonna shut down your ability to see color, that kind of stuff. It's stuff that happens to us when we're kids that can cause us to shut down these things. But for me, I shut down other things. I shut down my emotions. I shut down other stuff, but I kept my senses. For other people, they shut down their senses, but they keep their emotions and other stuff. It's all kinds of stuff. It's different for each person. So I kept my senses, and what I'm saying is that it's possible for anyone to develop perfect pitch. It's possible for anyone to develop perfect color vision, high tactile sense, high smelling IQ, all that stuff. It's possible for you to unlock all of these senses, and all of that is available when you do spiritual work, when you do healing stuff. But if you do have any of these high senses, let me know down in the comments below which senses you have. And also, if you don't have these senses, let me know which one that you would like to have or unlock, right? Because when you say like, oh, I know this is possible for me to have now, it would be great if I had this, then you're opening the door to have it. So like one of the things that I would like stronger is photographic memory. That's high visual IQ. So I have very high visual IQ, but my photographic memory is very fuzzy. Like I can remember something, like a snapshot of something, and go through it like somebody with photographic memory, but there will be parts that are blurry. Like, oh, I can't remember. And then also when I was in school taking a test, I would like recall like, oh yeah, I know that question. It was on the page that had this stuff on it. I don't remember all the details of that page or the page number, but I can remember parts of that page in perfect detail. And I know that my memory isn't perfect for visual memories because there would be parts where like I'm trying to remember this one spot and it's like I remember everything around it except that one part that I need for the test. So it's very interesting. Like it's very interesting the mind is able to do, what the brain's able to do, and what we're able to refine and tap into when our mind isn't thinking so much and our brain and our mind is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I've noticed that my memory has increased like rapidly when I want to remember something. It's just like that. Like I ask the question and then I just get like flashback download. So that's what the brain is supposed to be for. The more we practice this stuff, the better that we'll get. So let me know what you would like to improve on or what you have and whatever you want to discuss in the comments below. All right, namaskara. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am Yoshi Lan, and stay tuned for more spiritual stuff. I'm also going to be doing um, episodes talking about the universal principles, but I'm taking it to the next level where we talk about energy because a principle ain't going to be universal if it doesn't talk about energy. All right, see you guys around.